Hello everyone, I'm Victoria from UXpressia. We at UXpressia are a team of people passionate about helping others design and deliver better experiences. With our online platform, you can build data-rich customer journey maps and make your personas come alive. And do that all together with your teammates in real time. We have also got a consulting team that conducts public and corporate workshops on all things journey mapping and interviews, as well as UXpression Academy with its interactive courses and our free community events. So today, we will be talking about a service blueprint, and we couldn't have had a better guest expert today as Martina Mitz, a UX psychologist. Martina has not only contributed to the digital and service ecosystems of many recognizable companies like eBay and Volkswagen, Telecom, Stepstone, and many more, but she also helped selected startups in Europe by forming and driving their research, as well as contributing to their product or service strategy and definition. So the rest I will leave to Martina. Please meet her.
Hi. So nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here in your evening. I really appreciate that. And again, for the ones who don't mind, if you switch on your cameras, you're doing me such a great favor. I love seeing you while I'm not talking to the screen. Tom, nice to see you. Thank you. Really great to see you guys. It's like almost like being together. Hi. All right. So because some of you know me and you know I'm not going to fit in the time properly, but I'm going to do my best that we have proper time at the end for questions and answers. And if some of you need to jump out, you will always find me. You know how to find me. It's the user-friendly version of my name. Reach out. I'm always more than happy to help, guys. This is why we are doing that as well. So I'm not sure if Victoria will say a little bit about that at the end, but we are also working on a service blueprint template for UXpressia. So we really have an easy start with that. And as I said before, so excited to talk about that. As Victoria mentioned, it's such a great method that I really hope for the ones of you who've done it to really have like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I achieved with it. And these are the cases where it fits. And for the ones of you who haven't done it, to be like, okay, next Monday, I'm sending out an invitation email to different stakeholders. So without further ado, I've actually skipped my intro this time because also a lot of you know it. Victoria did a great work reading it. Go guys, read it. Like you see what I've done. No need to talk about that because I have a lot to tell you about the topic. So no time to introduce myself properly. But some of you who've seen my other talks, you know already the structure I usually use. So we'll first really make sure we create a common fundament by really making sure we understand the same thing. The ones who've heard it, the ones who haven't, we really understand the same thing when we say service blueprint. Then we'll look at a few reasons to really understand why is it so cool, really a very, very cool effort. Then we'll start creating that conceptual understanding, right? So how do we go about it? How do we create it? And then once we have a service blueprint, what do we do with it? Okay. And then at the end, I'll really try to make it tangible for our brains by giving an example from my work. You know the details. I'll try to give you a case study. We'll show you a case study and then a few more examples that I find quite inspiring. I'll leave you with a few more examples on the way. And then, as I said, we'll have some time for questions and answers for sure. If I talk too fast, raise something, shout out, yeah, let me know. And I hope my internet holds because Berlin internet, people, it's not an easy thing. Oops. Okay, let me not jump through slides. Sounds like a plan, I hope. I'm jumping straight into it. A service blueprint. Some of you have heard it and have done it. That's good to know. It's, as the word already says, it's really a blueprint for a service. And it's a very technical drawing, or it's a map that kind of shows you how a service works. And that was introduced in 84, a little bit after I was born, by the way. But it got adapted in service design around the 2000s. And that map, why is it always switching, damn it? And that map, guys, is an experience map like all the other maps I talk about. And as all other experience maps, like customer journey, mental model diagram, it's just a great big picture. It's great for complex services, for complex companies and offerings to have them on one page, to have all your colleagues look at one thing. So it really helps you look at these interactions between users and organization, very complex ones, but it also helps you put that very complex process to really take it apart and understand it and have it all together, right? So really an ultimate big picture, I call it. Damn it, I always have to switch here. And it is a great method because it has everything on one page, and its systematic approach into gathering that information from your colleagues. It really helps to put everyone on the same page, understand, have a shared understanding of what's happening currently and where the problems are, and then together, really with a joint force, start solving these problems or plan for the solving of these problems. So create a roadmap or whatever is next. And then, come on, last but not least, guys, a really nice side effect of a service blueprint is that not only your new starters get very easily oriented in your very, very complex offerings sometimes, because it's much easier to look at a map like that and understand what you're doing as a company than to read a stack of papers, say requirements, documents, and try and understand what they try to tell you. But also, because you have that big picture that looks deep into the organization, even your most niche employee will see how their work, their line of code impacts the entire user experience. So it really gives that purpose of why am I doing it? My work counts, no matter how niche it is. Okay. And as I mentioned, as every other experience map pretty much, so every time you try to break down an experience, you have that user level, more or less. You always on top have the user level. You always have some representation of the organizational level and the connector line level in between, right? So be it interactions between these two or the touch points, whatever you look at. You always have these two layers, and guess what? We are user-centered, so always on top, always first comes the user or the human level. And when we look at the service blueprint, for the ones of you who don't know it, to really break it apart to understand it, it pretty much consists of 3 lines, which then break it into 4 layers, right? So the first line that we have there, it's pretty much a no-brainer. On the connector level between these 2 main layers, we have the line of interaction, right? So between the users, the humans, and the organization as a representative, we have that line of interaction that's punctuated because something happens there, right? But then we have another line that comes next on the organizational layer. We have up to a certain extent, the users only see something from the organization. There is a lot that's happening behind the curtains that customers, users do not need to know about, right? So they'll only see up to that layer here from the organization, but not further. However, because there is also that layer of internal communication, so some of the employees won't need to know all the ways a company functions for them to be able to do something that you as a customer end up enjoying, right? So it's pretty much digging deeper and deeper into that organizational layer, as you see. And that leaves us with 4 layers, as I said, entirely on the map. So we have on top the user journey or the user layer, the human layer, customer journey, call it what you want. It's the humans, which points of view we will take. Then under the line of interaction, we have the front stage of the organization. So this is what customers will see. But we also have the backstage that they will not see, right? So there is a lot of the organization that's hidden behind curtains that users don't even need to know it exists. But then there are also further processes or even companies outside of the company, like supporting processes that need to happen that not necessarily every employee even needs to know about. Right? So you see how we get deeper and deeper into what does the organization do in each and every step of that user journey, pretty much. And to make it tangible, so this is a very abstract, stylized depiction of a service blueprint. So when you Google service blueprint, that's one of the examples you see, guys. And to make it really tangible what's happening there, imagine you have a client and your client is a theater. So the company in that case is a theater, and your client wanted to look at the journey starting from watching the play to exiting entirely the theater. Okay? So we take that first step, right, on the user journey. The user, there are things happening before, of course. They would have chosen a play, bought a ticket, and so on and so forth. But our client said, we want to look at that exit journey, so let's start with the play. And that's the best way for me to kind of explain it, the best metaphor, because it's not even a metaphor. It really speaks about front stage and backstage. So we take that theater play, right? You're the user, you get into the hall, you sit yourself, and now the play starts. What you see there on the front stage, remember, that's the organizational layer, all of that, right? So what you see on the front stage from that organization theater is the play happening. You hear sound, you maybe see lights moving. If the lights team is good, you don't see them moving, you see them as a part of that play, right? But there are things that you watch happening on the stage. That's the part of the organization that you see. Right? However, and I've summed them up here. I hope, guys, no one here worked in theaters and you're not going to lynch me. I know there are many, many teams behind the curtains. I just summed them up as the sound and lights crew, right? So you've got all these people behind the curtains who will be moving all these devices. They'll be moving decor. They'll be changing the decor while you're looking away. So for you, you get that seamless experience of a theater play. And then guess what? There are even things happening outside of the theater so you can enjoy what's happening on the stage, right? So there was a tech supplier. All the devices, all the lights weren't produced in the theater. They had to be delivered from somewhere. Same with all the costumes, all the decor needed to be produced. The actors needed to be recruited. The catering needed to be, right? So you get it. You get deeper and deeper into what is happening behind the curtains so you as a user can enjoy whatever we as a company deliver for you on the front stage. Okay? Make sense? Cool. Why are we doing that? Why does it make sense to do that? Nice introspection for companies for which they usually never have time. But why is it good to do it? I'm sure most of you guys know that example. For the ones of you who don't know it, right? We all have these different points of view, and depending on our point of view, we'll see very different things. So 6 blind men were put in front of an elephant and asked what an elephant is. And then the first person was like, yeah, an elephant is something like a tube. The second one was like, buddy, I'm holding a spear in my hands, like definitely. The third one was, guys, I have here some flappy cloth in front of me. I don't know what you are, what elephant you're touching. The fourth one was like, well, I'm hugging a tree. The fifth one was, you guys are all crazy. I'm obviously standing in front of a wall. I don't know where you see all these things. I'm in front of a wall. And then the sixth one was, you guys all drunk because an elephant is a rope. Here I have it in my hands. Okay. So the story is usually not that funny, but you see the gist, right? And it's the same. Not only your point of view will affect the way you look at something and the way you perceive something, but also the internal representations we build of the world, which are called mental models. We all have slightly different mental models. For example, when I say a light bulb, we all know what that thing is, but we all can have a slightly different ideas. I'm sure, guys, when you ask 10 people to draw you a table, they'll draw you 10 different tables, although it's the same thing. We all have slightly different ideas. So it's very important before you start solving something or really understand something to make sure that we start from an aligned mental model, right? That all colleagues talk about the same thing, and not that the one department says, oh yeah, our average user is Martina, who's 40, lives in Berlin. And then the other department says, no, our users are 60 plus, and like, how are these guys supposed to solve something when they have such different perceptions? So to align these mental models, you can't go around, but you need to externalize them from your colleagues' heads and then bring them on one sheet, if you want, on one page. They need to speak about it only by talking, externalizing it, bringing it out from our heads and starting to discuss. Only then we can really come to a common shared understanding of who our users are, what their most urgent problems are, and where is it most worth to really invest our efforts, right? So, as I mentioned before, it's just another kind of an experience map, right? If you guys are used to customer journeys, I'll show you a bit later. You can totally do that with the service blueprint too. It's just another type of an experience map. And because it is a kind of an experience map, and it does start, like all UX methods, with a user or customer on top. The ones of you who know my experience mapping experiences or experience mapping talk, you would have seen the arguments I like to give, the reasons, the rationale I like to give for why experience mapping is good, which is unfortunately not numbers I've come to realize. So I'm very thankful to the Aberdeen group for that. Some of you will know that graphic already. So what the Aberdeen group have done is to ask 211 quite big companies in the US, and they separated them in two types. The ones who have done experience mapping, in that case, customer journey, and kept it up to date, really put in the effort to manage it and to keep it alive. And all the other companies, the orange graph, which may be mapped once or not at all, okay? And we can't really go in details in that study, guys, but I encourage you to check it out. It's from a marketing point of view, and yet it's so valuable because it puts numbers behind all my preachings for experience mapping. And I just want to point your attention at a few figures here. Remember what I said at the beginning, almost 15% raise in employee engagement. Remember, I told you it's not only a great tool for onboarding new employees. They understand your service much quicker than giving them such folders as digital files now, not physically, but it's much easier to understand your complex offering. But also, it shows even your most niche employee why their work counts, why it matters. So almost 15% employee engagement, right? If you're an employee manager, Well, you want to look at that number here. You become so much better addressing the emotions of your potential customers that you get almost 8% return on marketing investment. You get so much better at solving the problems for your customers, understanding the problems that you guys hold on. 23% improvement in customer service costs. That's just mind-blowing for the ones of you who have to deal with budgets. You know what numbers we're talking about here, right? And in general, just because you do a much better work at systematically understanding and from that aligned understanding solving, you become so much better at selling through referrals, through cross and upselling, that in general, you're 16% better in your sales cycle. Beat that, right? Okay. So I hope you're on board that it's lucrative to do that. It's like it really pays out, right? And if you guys really want to kind of get in detail how to go about it, if you haven't before, then you know that's the guy I always recommend. That's the book I always recommend, because it's a freaking Bible for all experience maps. Like if you don't know the book, go check it out. It's full of images. My favorite book. It's full of examples. It has a whole chapter on service blueprint. And also all other experience mapping methods and when to use which. So Jim is great, really go check him out. And he has, by the way, also other great books. But out of scope here, out of topic. So say you want to get your workshop together. Where do you start? It's very important because you want to get in one room all the people from your company who are high level, who have that high level overview. So that specific point of view from their department, but they also know the specifics of their department. How do they fit in the company, right? So for you to be able to get all these parts together and then paint a full picture of your service, you want to think who are the different departments and who are the representatives from these departments who know the most. To give you an idea, guys, sometimes it's not the head of IT, it's the IT architect who will give you a better overview of the IT system, right? So think, who is the best person who will give you the most information and will know the best from their point of view? How does the whole thing work? You want to get these people, you want to start with that, because usually these guys and girls are very busy, right? So it takes a while to get them on board, to find some time in their calendars, as you've seen a little bit. And however, you don't want to go too broad here, right? You don't want to have 10, 15 people in that room. I would highly encourage you to try to keep them to 5, 6, 7 people, because think about it, guys. All of these guys are high-level paid people, and they'll have a strong voice. And now you're the one who needs to facilitate all these discussions that happen there. So don't torture yourself by bringing all 10 valuable people in the room. Try to limit them to 5, 6, 7 maximum people with UI that will kind of give you that good overview and understanding of the service. That's the first thing you start with. Then you need to be very clear, whose user's point of view are you taking? Is it going to be from the point of view of your business clients? Is it going to be from the point of view of the end customers? Or as I have it currently, guys, we are probably going to do the service blueprint with the current project I'm working on. We are probably going to take the point of view of the employees, because they're our frontline workers. So we want to see how does our organization support them currently. Okay, so you need to be clear about who is coming on top, whose point of view are you going to take. And then last but not least, once you get into the room, you need to decide with all these people, you need to agree which scale are you looking at. Are you looking at people's entire life and where do you fit as a company? Are you looking at their day-to-day and where do you fit as a company? Or are you looking at them starting on your homepage, let's say, and them finishing on your checkout or something. So what scale of a journey are you looking at? Decide that together with the group, let them commit on that journey, even if you just propose it, and stick to it, because that's your path of sanity, if you wish. Always when the discussion gets too crazy, that's your orientation path that you go back to. And you can always, when you go with a more global scale, say you look at the day-to-day life of people and where do you fit as a service. You can always take one of these steps and then blow it out and make a new map if you need to. Only if you need to. Don't do too many maps, because then it kind of diminishes the meaning of it. But you can always zoom in or out later. Once you decide on the scale, really try and keep the group on that path, right? It's your sanity path. So to kind of sum it up, you get into the room with these people. The first thing you do is you decide that top horizontal, your users, your customers, and the rough steps they go through or stages, right? Everybody agrees. And then you start stage by stage or step by step, peeling the onion and looking, what does the user see? Who do we need from the organization for them to see that? And who else do we need so our people in the backstage can do whatever is needed, so the front stage workers deliver ultimately the experience? Okay, systematically, step by step. Once you get that map, it's a little bit like it's a big effort. So first of all, take a weekend afterwards, guys. I warn you, if you have 6, 7 loud, highly paid people discussing in a room, you'll be soaked out afterwards. Like, remember my word, you need to relax. And then, of course, they'll ask you, okay, now what do we do with that? It was great, but now what? Well, while you go through that mapping, you see that you come to realize a lot of pain points from users' point of view, or a lot of pain points or risks from organizational point of view. And our brains, our human brains work like that. Not by coincidence, we are problem-solving species, right? So the moment we hear a problem, we start having solutions in our brains. And your colleagues are not going to be different. These old bosses that you got in the room, they're also humans. So the moment you start pointing out the problems, or they start seeing the problems, being them organizational or over-promising or whatever, they'll start having ideas how to solve them. Start noting that down. If your company doesn't have enough ideas, then promise you after that workshop, you will have enough ideas. If your company is one where your backlogs are bursting of ideas, guys, and what is the word? They're too narrow because you have too many ideas in the company, yeah? Well, that's a great method to bring them all on board. Now you get this ultimate big picture, an overview. You can invite your product owner colleagues and let them map their user stories, or if you have too many user stories, then the epics, let them map them on that journey map, on that service blueprint, and see what is the priority, what should we do first and what next. Or if they don't have that prioritization yet, you can bring them on the map and let them decide as a joint product team, where do they want to invest their efforts, in which stages do they want to concentrate their efforts in the next, say, half a year or 1 year, whatever planning cycles you have. Yeah, so you can really help them prioritize and plan better. And last but not least, it's a great tool to get other teams on board and help them build their strategies, right? So at the beginning, before people even get on board, you can get the marketing colleagues and let them look at how best to address that on the front stage, what's happening. Yeah, who do they need behind the curtains to attract new and potential customers, to really attract them well? Or you can get the sales team to build their strategy on that. You can start putting all the different things that you track, all the analytics and the key performance indicators of your business, and actually look from users' point of view. How well are you doing as a business? How healthy are you? Yeah. So it's a great kind of really a sanity keeper pretty much. And time is running, guys. I don't know what's happening with this time, but I'm not gonna take it away to give you that example that I hope will really make it tangible. So to really give you the story from my work. So some years ago, in end of July, I was in London and I met with the head of eCommerce. She was VP / head of eCommerce, whatever. And you guys see, I did the same presentation with her, what I pretty much just did with you. What is a service blueprint? What does it consist of? Numbers always when you talk to such people, e-commerce people, numbers, why does it pay out to do it? And then what do we need from our company to actually do it? So we decided together with her that repeat customer, so the whole retention program was a big thing for them. So we'll look at repeat customer, returning customers. We proposed already a scale of the journey. We discussed how broad do we want to look at it or how narrow. And then which colleagues do we need? So an e-commerce specialist, that was her, an IT person, a marketing person, business analyst, who else? And I needed a co-facilitator, as I'm going to show you in a second. And now, just to remind you, end of July, beginning somewhere mid of September, hey, all these 7 people found 4 hours in their calendars. Very, very busy people, right? So we've got the chief innovation officer, a product owner here on the back, you can't really see her, who's been there for 20 years, a marketing executive, the head of e-commerce, the IT architect, another product owner who was having like 6-7 verticals. Crazy, right? So it took me really over 1.5 months for these guys to find the time and to get in one room. And then you see the wall behind me, and you see I kind of try to keep them on track. So we decided I proposed that scale on top, right? Which, guys, when you look at it, pretty much a no-brainer, right? I didn't need much research to come up with a classical e-commerce journey. You need to understand somewhere that there is an offering, then you compare it to another offering that you've got there or something that you know already, that you've considered. Then you get a buying decision at some point. Then you use what you've bought pretty much because you've invested money. Then at some point, remember, we said that we wanted to look at retention customers. So I had that, okay, you stop at some point using it, some time passes, and then you come back. No research needed for that. You can start with it tomorrow. Right? So these high-level stages, you get them out from your colleagues pretty reliably. No need for extensive research to find that out. And you see in the room, that's the journey that I proposed, and I was prepared. Because I told you, a person who's been there for 20 years, 2 product owners, the chief innovation officer, so very product-heavy people, and I had the digital journey. So here from the homepage through the checkout to confirmation page, I had that prepared here with conversion numbers to show them where we've got the problems, but to also demonstrate to them, guys, these are just the second and the third step. We are looking a little bit at what happens before they even come on the homepage. And then because retention is important for us, we're going to look at what happens afterwards. Okay, so just kind of to be able to, for the ones who jump in and are like, but where is the homepage? But where is the checkout? I was like, there you go. It's here, is these 2 steps from the 5, 6 we're looking at. Right? Oh, and I forgot to say, lots of snacks. Guys, you need a lot of snacks because you get some very heated discussions. Oh no, this is what we do here. Oh no, we changed that already. Now we're doing it like that. And then the developer says, oh, that's not live yet. It's in quality assurance. It's still quality checking. It's not live yet. So it's very interesting what you find out there, but you need a lot of snacks to handle all these discussions and to keep them really on track and to not go all over the place. Then, as I mentioned before, you need a co-facilitator or an assistant. So that was one of our design colleagues, and he was interested to learn actually about service blueprint. So I was like, T, get on board. You'll be writing a lot. When I say write, you'll be writing a post-it. You see, also, I was writing some of the post-its. I wouldn't do that, guys. So stick to one role. You're whether the facilitator or you're the transcriber, right? Don't try to fulfill both roles. Why I wrote here sometimes, however, I use that sometimes to stop the discussion, right? So when they go too much in detail, I'll be like, guys, can we write that down, put it on the wall? We're not going to lose it yet. Let's continue in the map. Right, so it was a tool that helped me kind of facilitate these heated discussions also, but try to really stick to you being the facilitator, because you really need to have your mind really awake and a part of the discussion. So try to stick to that. And then if you need, just let's note that down and then continue. We are not going to lose it later on in another session. We'll come back to that. Okay, then a lot of what I use, so you see me already. For the ones of you who don't know me, now you see, guys, how like I'm with my whole body behind everything I talk, right? And you need to use that. So pretty much what I did, because I was also pretty new in that understanding that service, and it was quite complicated. So I would ask them what's happening in each and every stage. They'll tell me what's happening digitally, and then I'll translate it in real life. To give you an example, they tell me, yeah, you choose that offer, then you give your credit card information, then you check out and we thank you and we confirm it and that's it. And then when you come back, we don't greet you or anything unless you come to that credit card page again, then we recognize you. And I was like, all right, guys, so what you do pretty much, you're a brick and mortar store, and I come in today and I'm looking for something, and you have all these things there. So it is quite an effort for me to really find the relevant thing, find the best offer that you've got. I'm investing sometimes some effort. I'm finding the thing that I need. I come on the cashier and you're like, oh, hello, Miss Mitz. And I give you my credit card and you're all nice. And I check out and it was a nice experience. Now I come the next day and I walk in and I'm like, hey, Sandra, and you turn your head away. You're the seller and you turn your head away. And I'm like, oh, maybe she has a bad day today, but I need another piece of device, right? So I go again, I invest, I find this relevant device, I find the best offer from all offers you've got. I come on the cashier and I'm like, hey, Sandra, how are you doing today? And you're like a statue. Now it starts feeling a bit awkward, right? I'm like, well, that's not just a bad day, Sandra, but like, well, like, did I do something? Like, it starts feeling awkward. Now I pull my credit card because I want to pay. And at once, from statue, you were like, oh, hi, Miss Mead. So how are you today? Well, listen, that's the last time I'm going to buy at your store, because that's not just awkward. I'm missing the right word for that, but it's not a nice experience. So I use a lot of that translating in real life experiences and be like, guys, is this what we are doing? And they'll be like, Martina, are we really doing that? Damn it, that's not right. We shouldn't do it like that, okay? So use a lot of that, really translating it in just some metaphorical experience that shows, instead of saying this is wrong, really using some metaphor to show them how it feels, how crappy it feels. And then because you guys see me already, you can imagine we were laughing our asses off. I was almost crying before that wall. I was like, and then I walk in and you don't recognize me. Yeah, so have fun. It is fun, right? You want to touch their emotions. These guys think about numbers, about goals, about annual bonuses. You want to let them think about emotions. So storytelling is your tool for that. And then after that first session, 4 hours, right, that took me so long to get them in one room, we didn't even manage everything. And then guess what? That was 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the end of my contract. So these guys were like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't leave that company with something just like half baked, right? That's not how I work. But guess what? At the end of that session of 4 hours that took me over 1.5 months for them to find time for, they miraculously had time the week after. They cleaned their calendars, they found the time, they saw how valuable that is. And they were like, Martina, wait, so we've got 3 weeks left from your contract. So no, guys, we need to find the time next week. We need to finish that. Yeah. And that from these bosses who were so busy already. So that was already like, check, I've won something, like, woo-hoo. Yeah. And then we got in the room, guys. I don't even have pictures from the second session because we were so involved. I can't tell you. We even took an hour over. So it was scheduled 4 hours, but we had it at the end of the day because we knew we're going to probably overrun because it was the last session with everyone. So we didn't even make pictures of us working, only of the wall, pretty much. And however, in that week that we had between the follow-up appointment, between the two meetings, 2 4-hour meetings, because I knew it's the end of my contract, I wanted to leave them with something, not just that crazy pictures of a wall, but something that's really tidy, usable for them to be able to use further and really keep up to date, right? That was the idea of it. I went to my sanity keeper, for the ones of you who don't know it, my favorite tool, Mural. I just mapped what we had on the pictures, right? And walked in with that map the second week to show them, guys, we'll have all that digital, easy for you to move, easy to maintain once I leave, right? And when they walked in the second week, they were like, oh, Martina, by the way, your map is outdated. We've already improved some of the processes here at the beginning within 1 week, guys. They made that person who was the head of e-commerce, they made her the director, head of 2 departments, and then the director of the entire program. So she was kind of the central coordinator. And then you see how much more streamlined the processes were going forward. That was the end. That was the final map we ended up with. And you see how much more we had to do in the buy, use phase, how much more chaos was there in the company, right? It wasn't as nice as here. So the first thing when they walked into the room the second week, they were like, Martina, your map is outdated. We already did some improvements within a week again. Organizational changes take usually months, and they did it just because they saw how much it doesn't make sense to talk to these guys and then these guys and then go back to these guys, where these and these guys can talk to each other and then it's done. And they just did it. But then also, you see, guys, I told you that I was taking some of the notes, right? So strictly taken, that was the service blueprint. These were the stages. The black rectangles were the stages, and I had a sheet from that whiteboard, a sheet per stage with 2 lines on it. And the 2 lines were front stage on top, in the middle, the back stage, and the supporting processes. And now you see we added more layers at the bottom. We had pain points, as I mentioned before, from users' point of view or from the organizational point of view. And because pain points give birth to ideas immediately, I didn't want to lose all these ideas. So you see, ideas we were quite sure about we should do, ideas that we still needed to check and talk to someone else about. And then guess what? I would never add an additional layer, guys, for just one post-it. But because it was the end of my contract and these guys were really like, what should we do next? This one post-it was next step. So next Monday, when Martina is not there, what these guys will gather together and do as next. Okay? But it wasn't just that. They walked in that second week, and the head of e-commerce was Martina and the chief innovation officer together. They were like, Martina, we need to ask you something. Well, can we maybe put on top of each stage the promises we make to our customers and look at how well we do there, and if we maybe are not so good at some of the promises. Guys, user-centered mindset. Without me putting it with hammer in their heads or kind of shaking them, they came voluntarily and asked me to look at the promises they make to users. Yes, right? So I told you at the beginning, many birds with one stone, right? So in German, it's many flies with one hit. And in Bulgarian, I just learned it's many rabbits with one bullet. So we are all very barbaric, as you see. But the birds I was talking about, guys. First and foremost, user-centered mindset. Within a week, please show me another project when you've managed that. Sorry, I'm super cocky here. I'm not humble at all. I'm like, woo, Martina, well done, you. So really, that was for me, was like, I can leave these guys. I'm good to leave. I'm leaving them in good hands. I'm leaving them with a good fundament, right? They already think about the humans behind it. Then, because of that shared understanding that we created, these guys knew exactly what to do next, where to go, what are the next stages they need to tackle, what are the priorities, what they need to do first before even thinking about the thing at the end, the return customer or whatever. Because we all had it there, so it not only helped me to understand that complex system, that otherwise I would have needed 2-3 months to understand, but it also showed me the company dynamic. How do these bosses discuss and talk to each other? How well do they understand their offering, right? And now they were really from that common fundament, it was really easy to know, okay, what do we need next and whose responsibility is exactly where? Right? So it gave them a lot of orientation. Where are our crossovers, which is clearly my and your responsibility, much better work. Last but not least, guys, I mentioned this head of product, head of e-commerce, became head of e-commerce for 2 departments, e-commerce and lead generation. And then she became the director of the program. She loves me, as you can imagine. And I'm so happy she came forward because she was my ambassador for all of that. If she wasn't for her, we wouldn't have gotten the people even in a month and a half in one room, right? Super quickly, because I warned you about timing, yo. Super quickly, before I leave you with only my example, because I'm not the best visually. I mean, I'm not going to go back. So thanks to Miro, they look somewhat well, right? But I'm not the best visually. One of the best examples, guys, I found on the internet is from Bright Vessel. And see here, the confusion, they call it customer journey layers. Let's look at it super quickly. We've got stages on top. We've got steps. So they've broken down the stages in steps. But then what do we have? Touch points and the different departments listed and which department activates on which touch point. This is a service blueprint, a very beautiful one, right? So I wish I would come up with such visually pleasing things, but yeah. Another example. These guys, when you look here at the top, is exactly the same thing that you just saw. But now let's look at the other layers they've added. So for these guys, it was important to look at how long does each and every step or stage take, right? So they've added another layer, which is the duration of the experience. Also, what I really loved in their example, not only good color scheme and all of that, excuse me, but also they've added customer journey experience. So they just added a graph and looked at positive thoughts and feelings and pain points on the negative. So simple, yet so telling, guys. If you imagine you needed to write that in text, how many pages will you need to communicate that, right? And then last but not least, I mentioned this tracking data underneath. How easy is it when you have that and your employees start their day with that dashboard and they look at here and say, oh, something's wrong here. Oh, that's wrong here. Where are we? These departments we need to talk at, right? Because I mentioned my favorite book. Look, that's one of the examples. So I told you there is a whole chapter in Jim's book about service blueprint. Highly encourage you to read it. He's much better giving you next steps and how to do it than me. Here, one very classical example that's not so visually pleasing, guys. And yet again, think about if you needed to describe that quite complicated service that we see here in pages. No one will want to read it. And that's as not beautiful as it looks. It's easy to understand once you start walking through it, right? But also one of my favorite examples, guys, look at that. Here you've got the customer, you've got the waiters, you've got the cook, and you've got the manager. So three personas from the three departments from the organizational layer, the customer on top. And now look at that. They added a fail line of the service. So a business metric. Victoria, I'm almost done. Don't kick me out. Emotions line, a customer line, right? So you've got here the emotions. Again, the customer layer. I would have added that more on the customer side, to be honest with you, but whatever you need and wherever you need it, right? And then last but not least, another business metric, how much it's going to cost. And look at the simplicity of that, guys. 5 to 10 minutes and everybody has understood that. Even a person who just started in your business. Yeah.
Now you can breathe, Martina. Yeah, take a sip. Thank you so much for a brilliant talk. And while you're drinking water, we have a couple of questions, and I will start with them. Yeah, many questions. Yeah, there was one question that was sent by email. The name is Daria Lerga. I'm just starting out with UX and I want to base my studies on a mindset. Can you try to explain what would be the most important mindset any successful UX designer should have, or what makes a good UX designer, or what would you set apart in good and bad UX designer? It's not the exact topic that we were talking about, but UX designer, bad and good UX designer probably needs to know a lot about service blueprints. So,
well, Victoria, you can answer half of that question actually already, because I just learned Victoria is a UX researcher, was UX researcher. So to be honest with you, about the mindset, first of all, I have a presentation which is UX charlatans. There I talk a lot about who is a charlatan, who is a pretender, and I end up on a positive note because I was told I'm very negative, but I'm used to Eastern European, I'm allowed to. So I'll try to end it on a positive note by including some of the kind of typical mindsets I've seen in good UXers. So I'll kind of run you through that. I hope that will answer your question. Some of the UXers I've seen, and I intentionally say UXers, if you see, I don't say UX researchers, designers, but I mean UXers, user-centered people. Some of us are most of us actually, quite curious. We want to get to know people. It's like understanding people, how they function, how they think, right? That's kind of a trigger for a lot of us. But then I've seen other colleagues who are maybe a bit more introvert, not so out there and so curious and trying to understand and take apart, but they'll be very self-reflected. And these guys also have a good kind of potential for UX, because these are two of the things. So once you learn from other people, because you can never know it. And second, I think it's very important for UXers is to know that you are never right. Right? So to keep yourself in check. And this is exactly the second colleagues I mentioned. So the guys who are really, really good self-reflected or very self-critical, they would always keep themselves in check with assumptions, just making assumptions and going on assumptions. So this is pretty much in a nutshell. Be user-centered, really get your information from users, not from yourself. And if you catch yourself somewhere kind of transferring too much your experience onto it, keep yourself in check with insights from real users.
Thank you so much.
I hope that answers the question.
Totally agree with you. Another question came from Emily Roberts. What's the simplest version of service blueprint, and what are the best ways to build on a blueprint as you gather more information? She just shared a bit context, so it will be easier for you. I find I jump to the end result too quickly and overwhelm myself and those who I present to early on. This loses the confidence in the service blueprint as a tool. How can I more iterate about my approach?
Right. So very important. In that one thing, it's the only thing where Jim and I actually agree. Because Jim will always make the experience maps as workshops with other stakeholders. And I'm very different in that, guys. I'll make majority of experience maps for myself, kind of take away the insights, analyze for myself, and then bring the ready story and bring the client on board. That's the only workshop where I'm totally with Jim on this one. You don't want to skip that opportunity, just throw in the data and present it to your colleagues. The magic of the service blueprint are the discussions that you facilitate. Remember, you want to actually bring these people on board and align their mental models. You can't do that by just presenting them something. You want to actively engage them in discussions. And then also, guess what? That's the IKEA effect. The moment they've participated into the creation of that service blueprint, it's not just you who needs to go around the company and talk about it. You can lean back. They'll go around and talk about it and bring their teams on board and look for you if you're a good storyteller to walk them through, right? So you want to engage them into that. Don't skip that because you already have the information. Play dummy. Play a new starter in your company. So what are we doing here, guys? What does the user see first? Who needs to do something so they can see that first? Who does this person need outside of our company for them to be able, and so on and so forth, you get the gist. Play dummy.
Thank you so much. Another question from Mauricio Garcia. I think you already replied to it. Just make sure that you did it, but I'm sure. Is the user journey 100 equivalent to the customer journey map?
It's Mauricio, you're starting something here. You know, that's like the chicken and the egg. Listen, guys, so the way I use it, as you saw already, I pretty much call them experience maps because you start with one thing and then according to what you need, you add layers. So you might start with the service blueprint and then add so much in the details on the customer layer that you end up with pretty much a customer journey. And the differentiation between user and customer, the way I see it, user is the generic term. User is everybody who potentially could come into interaction with what you're offering. Customers are the people who you already have some connection with. They've given you an email, some information from them, they've subscribed for something, they give you money, you maybe have a frequent connection. This is how I see it. So that discussion, UX design, CX design, for me, user experience is everything, right? User, I see as equivalent to human. I actually call it human experience. Just HX is not that sexy, you know? So for me, it's the human. And from all the humans, the ones who we've already attracted, even just their attention, are becoming customers. When we have some like back and forth being of data, money, engagement, whatever, they already become customers. So back to that, user journey will be the more kind of bigger one, and customers will be the people who've already subscribed to you in some way.
It's just brilliant. I wrote to myself, human experience. That's
HX.
Amazing. HX, yeah.
I'm totally for HX.
We have a couple of questions from Inga. So she's asking if service blueprint only relevant at the start of the product discovery to gain alignment, or can be applied at any point in the process?
It actually, that's a great question, Inga. Thanks for that. It actually is really good when you start conceptualizing a service. You can use it for that. But as I mentioned before, it's really great when you come into a company and you see this team is doing that, that team is doing something a bit similar. When you see chaos, internal chaos, this is what you want to do. So understanding the status quo and creating that understanding for the need for optimization, not just release and get money, but restructure, manage some of the internal processes, which is usually the hardest. So that retrospective look is the hardest for every company because they function on the outside a lot, right? So to take that internal look, there is never time for that. So it actually is much better, I would say. It totally is valuable when you're conceptualizing a new offering, right? A new product or a new service will totally help you even to kind of put how you want it to function. Then you won't have all these pain points, maybe just some risks down there. But you bring all these ideas to a full story, to something seamless. So totally go for it. However, where you see even more of these birds that we kill with one stone or what it was, with one bullet or whichever it was, where it even pays more out is when you really capture the status quo and see what you can do better to really optimize that status quo.
Mm-hmm. And there was another question from Inga, and I can really relate because this is the question I wanted to ask. And if you don't have month to access executive stakeholders, what's a scrappier way to accomplish this workshop and equality high level of confidence behind findings? How do you do this? Because this is the question raised. I don't have months now to wait for everyone to come and then create the service blueprint method. So what do you do? What's the best way to approach this problem?
So the creation of the service blueprint itself, guys, think about it. This was 2 times 4 hours. Yeah, so this is actually 8 hours to create all of that together. So let me go back. That all with the, aren't they great? I found these birds with arms and I just couldn't spare you that, guys. Okay, so this thing all together ready, we needed 2 times 4 hours, say the second time 5 hours to be precise, right? And then another hour I had with that VP head of e-commerce to just really make sure all the connections are there, what's the color coding, kind of a handover, right? So the creation itself is not too long. But I get you, it takes quite a while for these people to get into the room. So what you want to do in that situation is get the highest person that you're trying to get on board, see who is their buddy, get one of them to sign off or to buy in in your initiative. Once they've bought in, they can actually order the other colleagues to free up their calendars. That's the only thing I can think of to kind of speed up that scheduling. That's why I meant start super early. The first thing you want to start with is sending that invitation, right? Guys, let's get together do it 2 hours. Start with 2 hours. It's much easier for them to subscribe to 2 hours. And in 2 hours, I guarantee you, they will already see the value and they want more, right? So start with a smaller bit. Try to get the hippo, the highest paid person in the company, to subscribe to your workshop and make everyone else come. That will speed up a little bit. But yeah, it's an investment. It's a bit of patience to get there, but it definitely is worth it. And it's not so much time when you think about it, the actual work.
It pays off at the end.
Totally.
We have a question from Scott Selhorst. How does Martina recommend we do the mapping when there are different groups of users who have different journeys, but leveraging the same organizational patterns?
So that's why I like that idea, Scott, that I saw in Jim's book. But the users that he's used here are still the organizational users. To be honest with you, I haven't done it with 2 different personas here. I haven't. I would try it. If you have a very simple journey, right, have the main user, really the primary user group on top, and then see how the secondary user group kind of fits into that primary journey. But you don't want to, what you want to pay attention at here is really to stick to that one point of view. For your colleagues to not get confused, say you have B2C customers, and then you want to see how they interact with the B2B customers as a part of your organization. So kind of the secondary persona already becomes that part of your organization of the service response. And that you want to really keep also apart for them to not get confused. Which point of view are we talking from right now? You want to only keep them in that, what does the user go through, the human? And how do we respond as organization, right? So try it. If it's really simple, short journey, try it. Let me know how it works. I would love, even for customer journeys, I've asked already many times, how can we make 2 personas in them? eXpressia has some ideas there. They have different personas that you can map on a journey. But also try and keep it simple, right? Don't overcomplicate it, because you want to keep it as a tool that's super easy to digest, that you look at and within a minute, oh, there is a problem, we should do something there without talking. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another question, 2 questions from Tom. I will start with the first one. How much time do you invest to prepare for the session like the one you showed us? And the following questions, how do you predict how long you need for the workshop?
Both of them, you just improvise. So no, the first question, Tom, I had I think 2 times 1 hour meeting with that head of VP of eCommerce. In the first hour, I got to know her. I understood her problems. This was really an intro meeting, getting to know meeting. I understood the problems. And then I was like, oh, Vicky, next time I'm in London, let's get a coffee, because I want to show you a method that I really think will contribute us and you as the head of eCommerce. And then in the second hour, guys, I pretty much did what I just did with you. Not so cool back then. Yeah, you saw my slides from back then were more this is what it is, this is why it's cool. So I just did a quick pitch for half an hour, and then the remaining half an hour we talked about, let me go back and show you to that last slide that I've prepared, as in what do we need from our company? How can we get it on, how can we get it into reality? Oh, no. Here. There. So that was half an hour, just really a pitch. That's the method. That's why we should do it. That's why I think it's really great for you. And then the second half an hour, okay, these are the customers we're gonna map. So the users, repeat customer, this is where we start the journey and where we end. This is the granularity or the level we're gonna look at. Let's propose that to people. Oh, to be precise, then I had another call with her where we decided to include that from homepage to confirmation to checkout and just to include it there to kind of calm some of the colleagues that it is there. It's not what we're just going to look at. It's in a bit broader context. And that was it. So it was kind of 3 hours prep, pitch, prep, and really getting it together. I had, say, 1 hour with not even half an hour with the assistant, with T, where I was like, T, just the moment I look at you, you write down. Yeah. And the moment you see me starting to write down, you can leave that to me. So we'll kind of just talk about how we sync up with him and that he'll write the most and that he should take some pictures because I wouldn't be thinking about it. And then we prepare, so 10 minutes before, no, sorry, half an hour before the workshop started, I ran to Sainsbury's and I got 2 bags of snacks. And then 5 minutes before the workshop started, I just put while I proposed the scale, T was taking already a sheet per stage and writing the name of the stage on top. So he was putting the wall behind me together. That was it. That's why it's so easy to start with it, right? Because you don't really need a lot of prep before, because you're not going to do much. You're just going to get out the information from your colleagues and let them discuss it and align it and come to an agreed shared picture.
Now we can see that it's not so scary or takes so many time as we thought before that.
Before I forget though, Tom had a very nice nuance in his question as well. How do you plan? How long will you need? You can't know, Tom. So I thought in 4 hours we're gonna map everything. It was just like 6 simple steps or something, right? Oh man, these discussions, like, you know, my voice, I was having hard time to stop these guys at some point in some of the discussions. They were quite heated. So of course I was a bit shocked when I just saw, right, so we have 3.5 steps, but we still have like 2 more to go. So as I said, just after they've done a little bit, when you haven't finished it, don't worry. Just ask them, guys, when can we have a follow-up? And then sit and watch the magic, how their calendars clean up miraculously.
Thank you. And another question from Krishni. What might be the role of UX research or relationship between UX research and service blueprints?
Well, to be honest with you, so of course it's good the moment you start expanding that and infusing it with more data from the customers, humans, users, call them what they want, these living organisms. The moment you start having more data about them and you need to start feeling it here, then of course you need your reality check, which is user research, right? So what I meant before, you can't know it. You're an expert, so you need to get out there and actually talk to actual living organisms and see how they tick. So at least, or what we had here, guys, let me go to that here with the customer promises, right? So what they had on top where they wanted us to write down the customer promises, I was like, validate how well you're doing these 2 here. Go back and ask your users, because if out of 5 things, guys, you're doing 3 not so nicely, I would validate if your customers actually perceive the other 2 in that stage okay, if they see that differentiated. Yeah, so this is where you'd want to reality check a lot of the information. Also, if you end up adding similar layers like that, Of course, you'd want to infuse, if you already know a lot of pain points from the user research, bring them in here, but don't state them directly, because then you'll be stoned and lynched there. Try and bring them into some stories, right? Remember the one I told you about, you going to the store, not being recognized, then you showing your credit card next day and at once being recognized. Every business brain, when they hear that, they realize the pain. They realize how much that sucks, right? So pack these things that you found in user research, pack them into clever stories that you infuse while you ask them how it functions. Yeah. And then last but not least, of course, once you've got some ideas, you'd want to do some cheap solution prototype, go out and validate it before you put any efforts into developing it, right?
Thank you so much. We have a question from Marion Boberg. You mentioned the best help, most important stakeholder is the IT or enterprise architect. I cannot agree more. You also mentioned no need for research. I like to start from focus group, where customer map journeys, then turn it into a blueprint, asking IT architect about the system layer, then go into other layers to get the as is, then workshop on the to be of visional blueprint. So where do you document the blueprint to be? Just overlapping the current starting map?
This was such a long question for this time of the day. Can you say it somehow? That's my brain was like, wait, what? Can you repeat it maybe, Victoria? I really try to concentrate.
Okay, so I think the main question is, where do you document the blueprint to be? Just overlapping the current starting map. So probably they already have a map. Mm-hmm. And then do you overlap it with a new service blueprint, or do you maybe integrate the map, the customer journey map they had before that? How do you do it? Or you create a new
for the beginning, if it's the first time you do it, yeah, try and keep it simple. I wouldn't mix up too much. Take your stages that are on top of the customer journey and just start with that. Start a completely new map, because you're doing it with your colleagues, with your stakeholders, right? Do that and then compare it with your journey and see, do you need to merge them both? Do you need to make some sort of a hybrid? And also think about, for each and every project, guys, I'll customize my maps a lot. Let's say I'll have something like, let me get there, that big one at the end that I showed you with all these layers. Let's say I have something like that. That's my full map. Now I go into a workshop with the developers who are looking at performance of the website. I will take only the stages, then the duration, which I'll put here on the customer layer, yeah, because it's the duration of the experience. So I'll pick and choose layers that I need for the corresponding project, you know, or I'll have 2 or 3 abstraction versions of that map. So one that's really that simple, one that maybe expands a little bit more here on the customer layer with like more pain points, thoughts and feelings, which is the customer journey. Then, right? So I will always have some hybrid. That's why I call them also experience maps and not one or the other. Only the service blueprint I'll make together with colleagues, right? And then I'll add or remove layers as needed from the new project. I hope that answers your question and makes sense.
Thank you. And the last question. What is the best way to map multiple scenarios? I ask because the blueprint can get too complex and lose the clarity. This was from Yelena Andreeva.
Helena, if you can give me an example maybe of how different the scenarios are, because at the end, your different scenarios or use cases, they walk into one umbrella, one company, one entire experience. Right? So I would always try to really zoom out as much as possible. Look at from a bird eye view as much as possible, to kind of as a first effort, as a first orientation, to not go too much in details, to keep it a little bit like that on higher level. Get that overview. And then, as I said before, you can take one of the stages, blow it out, and that will be your one scenario, I guess what you mean. 3 stages later, you have another scenario, so you can then start really look at them more granularly and create a new blueprint or experience map or customer journey, if you, depending on what you really need there. Yeah.
Yes, Yelena wrote, for example, if the user fails the green flow, we have to move to another journey map. This is her example for the multiple scenarios that can happen.
What's the green flow? I'm not sure. Elena, do you want to turn on your mic?
I will turn, yeah.
Yeah, you need to be approved. So Elena, if you don't mind, just switch on your voice and let me know what exactly you mean, because I'm not getting the example.
Okay, I'm here.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
So just for a clarifier, for example, there is like a happy path, and we passed the happy path, and we met.
That's what you mean with the green path, the happy path.
Yeah. And for example,
so
we have like different. Yeah.
Look at this example here, right? Elena, we lost you. Is it just me? Did you guys maybe lose me? Oh no, I'm still seeing you move.
Okay, yeah, I had to be unmuted again. Sorry for that.
Don't worry.
Yeah, I understand this totally. But for example, if this drops and we need to go to another journey, and then how? For me, I have problem to overwhelming the service blueprint with all the scenarios that I have to cover.
Exactly. Don't. So the moment you see it's getting too complicated, you want to zoom out another level. Go one level more global. Yeah. To give you an example. So when one of your scenarios is checkout, another scenario is comparing products. Another scenario is putting things in the cart is already a checkout process, but you get me, right? These are the different scenarios. What I've done here in that zoom out, pretty much, what I mean by that zoom out is to go on a generic level. Oh, come on, slides. To go on, okay, I need to click through them. I hoped I could quickly jump through to the example, but no. What you can do is to really go on a generic level like that. And that's where I mean you don't need user research if it's that generic. Everybody, before they buy something, they need to understand about it. Everybody will compare to something they know already. This is how our brains work. You won't just subscribe for something. You always check with your mental models, with your so far known information, where does it fit? Then you take a decision, then you, and so on and so forth, you guys. So that's and here the scenario will be comparing products on our website, right? So search results, comparing the different products and so on and so forth. From here, you start from the cart. Yeah, so this is how different scenarios fall into them by just fitting into one stage or maybe 2 stages, but by just naming the stages, you take away that detail of, okay, there is too much information, too many steps.
Okay, so do you mean then we can create like a separate file for that? Or
yes, yeah.
Workshop?
So start with the global one, right? Look at people the first time they talk to you as a company, up to the last time, but on a higher level, not all the details, but on a higher level. And then look from, say, these 5-6 stages that people go in their life cycle interacting with your company. Look, which are the 1-2 stages that are the most crucial. Take one of them and make a new service blueprint out of it.
Okay, I got you. Thank you so much for the clarification.
But don't go too wild, like don't make 6 service blueprints, yeah? Always ask yourself, why? what exactly am I trying to achieve with that? What do I want my colleagues to get out of it? Yeah, where do I want to get my colleagues? So always ask yourself, why exactly are you doing it? Why are you adding? Removing is always pretty much good. No, if you want to make it more simple for your colleagues, that's what I meant. Removing is and simplifying is always good if you can do it. Don't overcomplicate it. But yes, if you look at very different scenarios, go with different maps. Don't try and press them into one, then you overcomplicate.
Thank you so much one more time.
Super welcome.
Martina, again, thank you very much for a great session and answering all the questions today. We went out of time, but it worth it. So thank you. Thank everyone for joining, and take all the learnings from today's session and start implementing them in your project. And don't forget to check our UXpressure website. You can easily get started building your own buying journey with more than 70 templates, or you can use it for building the service blueprint. And with that, don't miss our post-event email. I will be sharing with you some useful links. See you around. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.